Well, hello rally friends and welcome back to my kitchen table. Listen, probably should be in Sweden just now, shouldn't I? But heading out a little bit late this time. But let's kick off this edition of the kitchen table and let's discuss Rally Sweden, because there's always more to discuss about Rally Sweden in the build-up than just about any other rally. That's because we have so many different factors coming into play for Rally Sweden, in particular the weather conditions, the weather forecast, and then the road conditions. The two are quite clearly linked, but just because we maybe don't have such a great weather forecast doesn't necessarily mean that we have poor road conditions. What do we expect this weekend then? Well, it's been a bit of a different kind of winter, I suppose you might say, out in Sweden. Very, very, very cold temperatures up until really a few weeks ago. Minus 20, minus 30 degrees regularly over the course of, basically 6 weeks or so, 6 weeks, 2 months nearly. What does that mean? It means that, yes, when you get the snow comes down, the ground is frozen and the snow just builds and it builds and it builds and it builds on the road. What you don't get in those conditions is an ice base. What you need to form the ice base is a good thaw and then a refreeze. Now, Glenn Olsen, who's the fantastic guy who runs Rally Sweden, has said the conditions this week have been perfect. Would I agree with him? Yeah, I think I would. I really do think I would. Perfect, though, might not quite be how I would describe it. It's been good, the conditions this week. What we've got, and we've seen all the pictures coming out of Sweden over the last few days, a lot of snow, really a lot of snow around. The roads look fantastic, the conditions look incredible, but we needed that thaw, and that is what we have this week. We've got temperatures, would you believe, in Torsby of around about 6 or 7 degrees forecast for Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Now, don't forget that the stages that run in Norway, a little bit higher up, the stages that run, for example, on Sunday, the Likenäs stage, again a little bit further north, a little cooler. Stages that are perhaps on a similar kind of meteorological, that's a good word, isn't it? Meteorological level are Saturday stages, the ones around, the ones that are around Hagfors, basically. But just because we've got 6 or 7 degrees in Torsby at the service park doesn't mean that we have 6 or 7 degrees in the stages. We don't, and there will be a thaw, which is good for the rally, as long as we then get overnight really, really cold temperatures, so that moisture that's created by the thaw freezes into an ice base. Is it going to be a big enough ice base? That is the question. That is very much the question. Listen, every year we go to Sweden, conditions are different. They really are. Sometimes we see magnificent conditions, absolutely picture postcard perfect winter conditions. Sometimes 2 or 3 years ago, I was looking back at some of my pictures on the recce from 2 or 3 years ago, and there were more or less pictures of a gravel rally. Yes, we then got a little bit of snow just before the event. This time around, somewhere in between. Looks great. Is the ice base thick enough? Well, I think it is. I really think it is. It's certainly thick enough for the first pass. We will see gravel appearing. That is going to be interesting on particular stages. As I mentioned earlier, my concern is Saturday stages. We might see a lot of gravel on Saturday stages. Maybe not quite so much on, in particular, Friday stages, because they are a little bit higher up across the Norwegian border. A little bit colder generally there. But what does it mean with the gravel? Well, it affects road position. It really does. Things like fresh snow clearly affect road position. You don't want to be first on the road with fresh snow. If the road is cutting up and it's cutting up rapidly, it's a difficult one to judge. I've actually talked to a couple of drivers this morning and asked them what they think the preferred position would be for Rally Sweden, and they both said more or less the same thing. 5th or 6th on the road might be the best place to be, because it will start to cut up, particularly in the slower corners. Those World Rally cars, remember we've got what? Have we got 11 of them here this weekend? I think we do, don't we? Is it 11? I think it is. They cut up in the slower corners. They cut up the gravel. Well, they cut up the ice on the top. They get rapidly down through that ice into the gravel. It gets messy. It gets difficult. So, quite possibly on that Friday, the best place to be on the road could be round about 5th or 6th place. It'll then get worse. It then gets very, very interesting on the second pass in particular. The big thing in Ogier's favour this time round, and again talking about the second pass, is the fact that the national rally that runs in Sweden. Sweden is a fantastic entry list. We've got a wonderful WRC entry list. WRC2 is really competitive. We've got the Junior World Rally Championship as well in Sweden. But we also have this wonderful national rally that runs in between, the historic rally with Peder Solberg and the likes. And a good entry list for that as well. Remember in previous years, Ogier's biggest complaint on the Friday, he complained a fair amount, but his biggest complaint was the fact that those historic cars running narrower tyres were actually creating different ruts, and ruts are a big part of Rally Sweden. They were creating different lines and different ruts. Now this year, the historics are running on the same width tyre as the main field, and that should hopefully eliminate some of those issues that we had with really horrible all over the place ruts in previous years. Should make it a bit easier. In particular for the first couple or 3 cars on the road. It's not been a happy hunting ground in the last couple of years anyway for Sebastian Ogier, having to run first on the road in Sweden. I think this year might be a little bit different. I really do. We saw that Citroen going very, very well there in the hands of Craig Breen last year. I think Ogier could do well this weekend. I don't think he's going to win, by the way, but I think he could do well, or better than he has done in the last couple of years. When we talk about who might win this event, I think you have to look at the pace of the Toyotas. Yes, we had a Hyundai winning with Thierry Neuville last year. But remember we had Tanak with that very strange incident with Chris Meek last year. It was a difficult event for him. Tanak, for me, could be the man to beat. 3rd on the road, not a bad starting position. Chris Meek, what is he? 4th on the road. Latvala, where is he? 6th on the road, I think, 5th or 6th on the road this weekend. Toyota are well set, dare I say it, to dominate this rally this weekend. They will be the ones who have the most data in terms of the variable conditions out there. With tarmac, you've got dry tarmac, you've got wet tarmac, you've got standing water, you've got bumpy tarmac, and you've got smooth tarmac. There are a limit to the different kind of conditions you would meet on, say, tarmac, whereas the snow and ice and gravel, well, it multiplies the possibilities that you could meet during the course of an event. The team that will have the most information in terms of those variable conditions is without doubt Toyota. They are based in Jyväskylä. They have tested around Popola really since the car first appeared 2 and a bit years ago. And they will have a bank of information at their disposal to allow them to adapt the car, to set the car up to match whatever conditions we might come across during the rally. So my view, as I say, is that we will see possibly domination from Toyota. 1, 2, 3, not out of the question. Absolutely not out of the question. 1, 2, 3, 4. Could that happen? Could Gronholm get himself into the mix here? Well, let's talk a little bit about Marcus Gronholm. Fantastic to see him back. 50 years old, first time in a World Rally car since 2010. First did this rally, I think, in the 90s, 30 odd years ago. He first did Rally Sweden. Remarkable to see him back. And I've talked to someone who was at his test last week before last, can't remember when it was. And they said it was quite remarkable. Gronholm was like a kid in a sweet shop, and he was bang on the pace from really the first run. But having spoken to Gronholm, this contact said that he understands the position he's in. It's a treat, if you like, to himself. There's a lot of sponsors on the side of that car, mind you. But he's coming back to enjoy the outing. There are 19 stages in Rally Sweden this year. He wants to do all 19 of those stages. He wants to do them competitively. He doesn't want to embarrass himself, but he wants to make sure he gets through. To win Rally Sweden, you have to take chances. To win Rally Sweden, you have to be comfortable leaning the car against those ruts. You have to be comfortable not just leaning the car, but how to deal with it when that car jumps out of those ruts at high speed. Those are the circumstances where Gronholm will lose a bit of time. I can't see him being so confident to be able to lean the car against the ruts, to be able to manage the car as it jumps out of those ruts. Yes, he'll manage it. Of course he will, because he's got more experience than anyone. Listen, he's won this event 5 times. What I heard from the test was that on the first pass, after they'd done their sighting runs with the pace notes, on the first pass, they went over a jump that they had as possible long, something like that in the notes. And Rautiainen said afterwards, I genuinely thought we were never coming down. It just went on and on and on. And Gronholm was flying. He reined in a bit after that. And that is what I think we will see from Marcus Gronholm this weekend. That won't play into his hands, and I don't think road position will play into his hands either. Had we been looking at fresh snow in the forecast during the course of the day, absolutely, that would have helped him out, but we're not. But we will all just revel in the delights of seeing Marcus Gronholm back out on the stages again this year. It'll be wonderful to see what can he do. I think top 6. I genuinely think much more than top 6 is a fair ask for Marcus Gronholm. Although last time I said that, I was talking about Sebastian Loeb, and I was talking about Rally Spain. And what happened in Spain? Oh yeah, he went and won it, didn't he? He went and won it. Nah, that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen here this weekend. Sadly, Gronholm is not going to win. But he could get in the top 6, and we could have 4 Toyotas in the top 6. It'd be quite remarkable, wouldn't it? Neuville, though, he needs to maintain that great start he had in Monte Carlo, as does Ogier. I think we're looking at the 3 again this year in terms of the championship, Ogier, Neuville and Tanak, and they all had decent starts in Monte Carlo, didn't they? It's going to be even tighter this year than in previous years. I'm absolutely sure of that, and that's obviously saying that, knowing exactly how tight it was last year and the year before. Every chance that this year in the championship could be even tighter than that. Let's look at a couple of drivers who perhaps, or certainly one driver, who will be looking for a strong weekend here. Strong weekend, Andreas Mickelson. Disastrous start for him in Monte Carlo when he, on Saturday, ripped the wheel off that car, trying to nibble a little bit more speed through that flying finish, ripped the wheel off the car, all over for Mickelson. Disaster of a start for him, particularly considering the run of form that he's shown over the past year or so. But this is a good one for him. He's done well here in the past. He's got, 3 or 4 podiums in Sweden on previous occasions. He's Norwegian, brought up on the snow and ice. He knows how to go fast here. We have to see not just a fast drive from Mickelson, we have to see a measured, a sensible drive from Mickelson. I said this a couple of kitchen tables ago. I don't want to see a consolidation drive for him, because we know he can do that. We know that he can drive for 6th, 7th, 8th place, day in, day out, make no mistakes. That is perfectly comfortable. We need to see pace. We need to see challenging pace, but it needs to be done in a sensible way. Anything I think inside the top 4 for Mickelson here is a good result. Anything on the podium for Mickelson is a great result, and he is more than capable of delivering that. And he needs to deliver. He needs to deliver not just for himself, for his own confidence. Perhaps more than that, he needs to deliver for the team. Mickelson has been retained this year, and by all accounts, it was a bit touch and go as to whether he was retained, but he has been retained. He has that potential to be one of the elite drivers in the WRC. This is where he has to show it, and he has to be supporting the team. There is enormous pressure on Hyundai to deliver titles this year. And they had a decent start, it's fair to say, in Monte Carlo, particularly with Thierry Neuville. But, these are the bankers for Andreas Mickelson and the Hyundai World Rally team. Mickelson will go well here. As far as Hyundai are concerned, he has to deliver that. And do you know what? I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because we need to have Mickelson back to his best form. But there is pressure on him, no question about that. Absolutely no question about that. What about Sebastian Loeb? Not a rally he has particularly done well on. Now, that's not to say he hasn't enjoyed it, because he has enjoyed it in the past. But remarkably, he's only won it once, and that was probably 16 years ago, 17 years ago he won this rally. He's crashed here a few times. He's come close on a few occasions, but it's not one of those rallies that Sebastian Loeb has dominated. But again, Loeb knows his job this weekend. His job is to be there or thereabouts. Anything again inside the top 5 is a good result for Sebastian Loeb. They will be looking surely at Thierry Neuville to be pushing for the win, Loeb and Mickelson to back him up, to score and secure those vital manufacturer points. And Loeb is more than capable of doing that as well. He knows what he's got to do this weekend, Sebastian Loeb, and it is certainly not to win this event. So I think it's worth mentioning as well, WRC 2 this weekend. WRC 2 is going to be interesting. Listen, remember it was won by Katsuta last year in the R5 Fiesta on those Pirelli tyres. It was Takamoto Katsuta. It was one of the most remarkable drives I think I've ever seen. Yes, he had an advantage with the Pirellis. And we'll talk about that in a second, why those Pirellis were that little bit better, much better in fact, than the Michelins were certainly in Sweden last year. But it was a remarkable drive. There was a lot of pressure on him. You know, he had some top quality drivers who were, if you like, snow and ice experts, harrying him, chasing him down all weekend. And he kept his cool, he kept his nerve, he made no mistakes, and he won quite rightly. Now, the consequence of that is that if you go to Sweden today and you decide you want to run on Pirellis, you can't, because there aren't none available. They've all been sold out. Apparently they've gone. So what is the difference between the Pirelli and the Michelin tyre? Well, there is apparently a slight difference in stud length, but that's not the main difference. The big difference is stud retention. Pirelli have a very, very clever way of making these winter tyres. Now, what happens with the Michelins and other brands is that you create the tyre, you make the compound, and then you insert the studs. So the studs is, if you like, an aftermarket addition to the tyre. Whereas the Pirellis, they patented a number of years ago a process where the tyres and the studs are made together. So the studs are embedded within the tyres during the construction process. And it means that the retention rate for those studs is that much higher than, if you like, the conventional way, which is to get your tyre that's been formed already and to insert your studs, to get your little stud gun and bang, 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 put your studs in. That is a good way of doing it, but not the best way. The best way appears to be the Pirelli way, which is to combine the insertion of the studs into the process whereby the tyre is made. And we saw it last year. It was fantastic. Stud retention could be a big thing in the WRC and WRC2 this weekend. There will be, I think, on the Saturday, quite a lot of gravel appearing. Maybe even on the first pass, most certainly on the second pass. And what happens there is that yes, the tyres will work fine, they'll work well on the gravel, but it chews the tyres, the studs disappear. And some of those cars will come to the stop line and they will just look like gravel tyres with thick cuts in them. That's all well and good if the whole stage becomes gravel. That won't happen, particularly when you're in amongst the trees. You'll have sections where it's gravelly, and then all of a sudden you'll have sections where there's plenty of snow and ice. And it's the tyre that retains, or the driver in the WRC in particular, who manages that stud retention best, who will go best here. And in WRC2, I suspect, like last year, it could be a Pirelli runner. So who are we looking at? Emil Bergqvist. He's on them. Katsuta-san's on them again. As is Kristoffersen, our 2-times rallycross champion. He won a stage last year. What can he do this year? Grosjean as well, the Russian, the flying Russian kid. He might surprise us all. As is one of the, is it Eric? One of the young Finnish drivers. He's in a Skoda, I think, this weekend. He is also on the Pirelli. So those, I think, could be the boys to watch this weekend. But stud retention, whether you're on Michelins or you're on Pirellis or you're on something else completely different, stud retention could be what we're all talking about come the end of this weekend, particularly, I think, on the Saturday. And if we go back to WRC, who's the master at looking after his tyres, whether it's looking after tyres on an abrasive, degrading tarmac surface or looking after your studs on a perhaps changeable winter surface, plenty of snow and ice, but plenty of patches of gravel that just chew out those studs. Well, the best man in the field is Ogier. It really is. Could it be Ogier's weekend again? He's won here 3 times in the past. Could it be his weekend? I think it could. I really do think it could. From first on the road, ooh, it's a big call. No, I'm going back to my original thought. You can tell I make this up as I go along. Don't make it up as I go along, but I don't really script it, and I've certainly not got any notes. But no, I do think Toyota are the team to beat, but I think Ogier will have a good weekend, certainly a better weekend. Remember, with his road position last year, it didn't matter what he did. There was fresh snow, there were those very, very difficult lines being created by the historic cars for the second pass. he was struggling. In fact, he wouldn't have got into the top 10 without the help of Elfyn Evans. And he had to, remember, in the power stage, pull that stroke of tactical genius to claim points in the power stage. I don't think it'll be quite so difficult for him being first on the road this time for a number of reasons. One, the fact that the surface is different. We aren't expecting fresh snow. Stud retention will come into it, and there won't be that issue with these really messy ruts that we've seen over the last few years. Could be Ogier, but then again, I'm a big Ogier fan. Could be his year, but no, I think it could be a battle between the three Toyotas as well. Chuck in Thierry Neuville into the mix there, and we have a massively exciting weekend. Listen, the other thing I wanted to talk about before I go, West Cork Rally, thank you very much, guys. I'll have a little sip because it does go cold if I leave it to the end. It's a special mug, this. Every finisher in the West Cork Rally gets a mug. But I got one, and I've never been. I'm hoping to put that right in a few weeks' time. I'm very excited by that. 2013, they've dug this out from the deepest, darkest recesses of the West Cork Rally merchandise chest. 2013, it's been sitting for 6 years, waiting for me to claim it. Very pleased to have this. Thank you very much, guys. Looking forward to the West Cork. It was a great start last weekend to Irish Tarmac Rally, and how good was it to see Craig Breen and Paul Nagle out doing so well. Very quickly, Craig Breen, Paul Nagle, fingers crossed. Let's keep our fingers crossed. I know they're working incredibly hard to try and get something together. I think we'll see them before the end of the year, I really do. The other thing I wanted to talk about very briefly, President Todd has talked about electric cars and the way that we have to go, the next set of regulations for rallying. I'm totally in agreement with him. We need to have the next set of regulations defined. These are the regulations for 2022. We need to have them defined and clear as soon as possible. Rallycross is an absolute object lesson in how not to do it. You know, we're going to go electric, we're not going to go electric. We're going for 2019, we're going for 2020, we might put it off till 2022, we might go hybrid, or we don't know what we're doing. Exodus, out the door, where's the open door? See ya, Volkswagen, Audi, all the others, see ya, they're off. What manufacturers don't like is uncertainty. They like to plan. They like to know where things are going, and right now, whether you agree with it or not, they like electric. And you know what? You have to agree with it. You have to agree with electric. We are going electric at some point in the future. My kids, who are nearly 10 and 12, will drive the majority of their lives in electric cars. My grandchildren will probably laugh at the traditional combustion engines. Go, what is that? What is that thing? They'll stop at the side of the road and they'll stare and they'll point as cars that have traditional combustion engines trundle by, making a terrible noise, spewing out whatever it is they spew out the back. We're going that way. You know, there are a lot of challenges in terms of electric and rallying. Hybrid is quite clearly the correct way to go to start off with. You can't rally through stages. Right now the technology is not there in terms of the length of the loop, the power that's required, the longevity that's required. Technology is not there. Technology has come on massively in 10 years. In 10 more years, it will take further massive steps forward. My view is it's a fabulous opportunity for rallying. What better way to demonstrate the potential of electric vehicles than on rally stages, on some of the most demanding, challenging roads in the world? If you can get an electric car doing a loop of stages with, performance stages, power stages, I say power stages, full power stages, you can get them doing a loop of stages plus the liaison back to service, and then again in the afternoon on one charge, one battery charge. That is a tremendous demonstration of what is potentially possible, and it has to go that way. The sound issue is an enormous one because rallying is an assault on the senses, and it's why we love rallying. We love the sight of the cars, we really do, and the sight of cars on everyday roads doing extraordinary things absolutely blows us away every time. But there are other elements that come into it. There's the oral element of it, the sound of the cars coming through the hills, the mountains, the forests, deep in the valleys, coming towards you. It sends the hairs up on the back of your neck, spine tingling. And then there's the smells as well, the smell of the engines and the smell of the exhaust. All those things combine to give us the most incredible experience when we're out watching rallies. You know, we can't afford to lose 2 or 3, or certainly 1 or 2 of those elements, the sounds, the smells. We can't afford to lose them. So what are we going to do? Well, do you know what? My camera has an artificial shutter sound on it. You know, what's to say we can't have some sort of sound that's linked to throttle and brake response? You know, it does sound a bit silly just now to talk about that, but it might deliver, you know, and these things need to be looked at for the future, because we can't ignore them. We absolutely can't ignore electric, and we can't just stick our head in the sand and go, "Pwah, it's not for rallying," because it is. It is an opportunity to cement the future of rallying, to be at the absolute forefront of automotive technological innovation. We have that opportunity. We really do, to embrace manufacturers and what manufacturers want. That is what they want right now, to embrace it. But, you know, we've got to make our voices heard. We want sounds, we want smells potentially, and we want cars that can perform in the stages the way that these current crop of World Rally cars are. I think it's going the right way. I really do. I'm encouraged by the very positive sounds. There's a positive reception that President Tott's missives received the other week. So let's see what happens there. It would be interesting to hear your views on that, by the way. So actually, a lot of you did give me your views on the Facebook piece that I posted the other week. So I've read those and taken those on board. Thank you very much for those. Once again, folks, thank you very much. It's been another longie at the kitchen table. Thank you to Westcock Rally. Listen, there are a few other rallies that have been in touch with me that are wanting me to talk about their events at the kitchen table. For sure I will. I'm absolutely always delighted to help promote any rally anywhere in the world. Talking about that, if you have a brand or a product, I mentioned this last time, that you think might benefit from being associated with my little talks at the kitchen table, drop me a note. I would love to talk to you. You know, we're always looking for sponsorship, and I think the kitchen table is a fantastic sponsorship opportunity. 15 to 25,000 views we're getting these days. Thank you all very much for sitting and watching and contributing, because you really do contribute with your comments. And you contribute, as you do beautifully every week, with your likes and shares. Your likes on your likes on YouTube. And obviously your subscribes on YouTube. And in particular on Facebook, your shares, always appreciated. If you've enjoyed this one, again, press that share button, do me a big favour. So folks, thank you very much indeed for watching. I'm off to Sweden tomorrow, Thursday. Quite late for me, really, isn't it? But I'm off to Sweden tomorrow. Can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to it. We'll talk to you next week, when I'm sure we've had a whole weekend, 19 stages, 320 Ks of the most intriguing action in Sweden this weekend. We'll see you all next week. Thanks very much.